Well, thank you for coming. I assume everybody in the room has some connection. I see somebody in the back there that has a connection with Boy Scouts here or somewhere else, so you probably can tell me some stories that I should include in the program here. And if you want to, seriously, if you want to give me some good historical information, I'm at billh@purdue.edu. BILLH. You get a name like an address like that when you're there when they start the program. This is really about the Carys, Mr. Cary. The Cary Camp is a memorial to their son. And so I'm going to do some background on the Carys before I get into an introduction to scouting in the Lafayette area and then into the storied history of Cary Boy Scout Camp. And we're having our centennial in 2027, which isn't too far away.
Hold on 1 second, it went out.
Do I have to stand back here by the phone?
No, you do not. I'm just trying,
Oh, yeah.
try the clicker. That thing, press the button. There we go, okay.
Quick. The bulk of my information is coming from the Journal and Courier. They're one of the camp rangers, Mr. Bowes here, did a history. I disagreed with some of the stuff he came up with, but that's okay. And there's some stuff at the archives that I need to get into. So
What was that picture? Was that a Franklin? Was it identified? Is that Franklin?
no. That's Mr. Bowes. Harry A. Bowes, the camp ranger.
Oh, Camp Ranger, yes.
I know of no picture of Franklin L.
Huh?
There may be one somewhere, but I have not run across it.
Okay.
Franklin L. died when he was 19. He was about to enter college and he got appendicitis. And not too long after that, his mother died from appendicitis. And probably ought to get my notes out so I don't tell a lie. My recall is not as good as it used to be. So Franklin Masten Cary, the father, grew up in Detroit, Michigan. His father ran a tugboat company on Lake Michigan. And Franklin came down when he was in his 20s, worked for a company that made cars of the railroad kind, not the kind that's on a road. And Jessie's family, her father was a banker and in the business. And when Franklin M. married her, he did quite well. That was a good marriage. He was obviously very entrepreneurial on his own. And so 19 years, Jessie is okay. He in 27, the same year that he gave the land for Cary Camp, he donated the money for the Cary quadrangles at Purdue, and then in 29 for the Cary Children's Home. And the Cary Children's Home is a memorial to Jessie. And he died in 36 and had an estate, and he left it to, in addition to the list there, he donated it to some other stuff. And I really wasn't aware of how important and active the YMCA was. It goes way back, turn of the century, the previous century, I guess. And Mike Hunt told me that this is the Cary home.
Diagonally across the street from the Levering Mansion.
Oh, okay,
Right over here was the Levering.
okay.
Big place.
And the Levering built this house for his
I would have said
son.
so.
Okay.
That was their house. He and Jessie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's right because you told me. He runs the Centennial neighborhood, so. And we like to think that the spirit of the Carys lives on. I got Dave Sattler to do a cartoon for me. And I much appreciated that. He didn't charge for it. So those were available at the camp if you're interested. The BSA staff was founded nationwide in 2010. The first troop in town was 2011. The YMCA started it, and things were kind of disorganized back then. Individual troops, till maybe 10 years later, all just registered directly with the national office. There was no coordinating council, it's called now, to take care of that. So when you look at the history, the dates, some people interpreted, I think, some of the early troops as not being official because they weren't properly registered or whatever. But the scouting was more integrated into the community than it is now. The scouts were called upon to, I might have a list here when I. Well, let me back up. This, I have a couple inserts here. This one is one of the early Boy Scout troops. And unless somebody tells me otherwise, it was the only mounted Boy Scout troop in the country. And Jackson Heights, it's southern border of Tippecanoe County. And I hope they weren't ready to jump off the cliff there. But I just can't imagine. They used to ride into town, go through town and go out to Cary Camp and do what Boy Scouts do. I just can't imagine it. And the Boy Scout program was an integral part of the Chautauquas and the Bible camps that occurred out of Battleground. There was a boys, what's it called? A Boyville. It was a Boyville. And there was somebody that became the scoutmaster, and he organized the young men that were there, and they did all kinds of scouting stuff, including training. And they put on displays. This is a bad picture of displays of the scouting activities that the Boy Scout troop was, made up troop was putting on. And that included things like semaphore flags. And the history of Boy Scouts and militarism, there's some stuff that is kind of interesting. And most of the militaristic aspects of Boy Scouts has gone away. We don't talk about troops marching around anymore, but back in the good old days, they did a whole lot of that. And they had a recruitment campaign, and this is an ad that was in the paper. And it significantly increased the number of scouts in the community. Columbia Park was very, very active then. There was another park in town back then. I don't remember which one. So the scouts back in the teens and 20s did crowd control, raised money for YMCA and charities, and sold American Legion puppies. You all remember puppies. They started a packaging delivery service. You could take your packages down to the courthouse square and put an address on it, and the Boy Scouts would deliver it to wherever you wanted it to go. Maybe the post office service was about then was like it's about now, but that's a different story. Liberty bond sales, a lot of troop trains came through town, and they would have bean feeds for the troops, and the ones that stayed at the Y, they helped take care of them. When there was a big event at Purdue, most of the folks came on trains, so the scouts were down there telling the folks getting off the train how to get up to Purdue and getting them oriented. They cleared parade routes, posted no spitting signs during the tuberculosis there. And at the county fairs before the Red Cross became active, they had the first day 10. They ran. And they took a traffic census for the city, I guess.
Hmm.
I mean, it's hard to imagine a Boy Scout troop doing that kind of stuff now. The camping has always been an integral part of Boy Scouts, and until Cary Camp was established, the troops on their own initially just went wherever they thought they could set up shop with permission. And then later on, they started to cooperate. The troops worked together and set up camps, and most of them were on the Tippecanoe River. And this is a picture from, these are all from the newspaper, obviously, of Camp Tippecanoe in 1921. And there's some other indications of the militaristic aspects of the Boy Scouts. This is a story that I love to tell. The Fowler Troop was one of the earliest and one of the biggest, and the Fowler Troop Scoutmaster became the first professional scout executive. But look how big it is. You drive through Fowler now, and you probably couldn't dig up that many young men if you wanted to. Those small towns were totally different back in this period than they are now. I mean, they were real communities, not just someplace you live in and get in a car and go somewhere else to do whatever you want to do. Anyway, they had a room above a garage that had a fireplace for heat. And there was a young man was up there by himself, and he wanted to start a fire. So you know where I'm going. He started the fire with gasoline. And the fascinating thing is that his fellow scouts donated skin grafts for him. But he lasted a couple of years, and then he succumbed to the impact of very, very severe burns. So that scoutmaster from Fowler was Pop Wheeler, and he became the first professional scouter. And he's important because he was the one that orchestrated the founding of Cary Camp with Mr. Cary, and that's his training. And he was the executive until 1941, which is a long, long time. So if you wanted to name the grandfather of scouting in the community, you could probably name Pop Wheeler here. There was a whole lot of other folks that helped start the Boy Scout program in the community. A lot of professors at Purdue, Dean Coulter from the Department of Science at Purdue was involved. And it's really heart-rendering to see all the support they did get. So on July 19th of 1926, there was a fairly large article in the Journal Courier about the number of troops and councils around the country that were setting up permanent campsites. And supposedly, I'm just going to call him Frank because apparently that was what folks called him, was following the development of the Scouts. But if nothing else did, this article, I think, might have influenced him to think about how he might help the Boy Scout program in the community. And so he purchased 44.4 acres on Wildcat Creek in very late 1926, and he immediately gave the Boy Scout Council, this would have been the Tippecanoe Council at that time.
Franklin died.
He died in 36, I think.
You mean the which Frank?
The
The son.
No, the son was
dead.
Yeah, 1912.
1912, yes, thank you, whoever. And so Frank Senior was keeping track of what's going on, and so he decided he was going to take care of the land problem. And so in 1927, before there was anything in the way of improvements made at Cary Camp, other than what the scouts did themselves, they had a full-blown summer camp. And the 44 acres was the hatched area there, and it comes off of 26, and then it goes through what would have been a field, then down to along Kitty Creek. I think that's the proper name for that creek that comes down there. And then it runs along the Wildcat Creek. So that was that location, I think, was important because it gave a more of a wilderness, natural kind of experience to the boys. Because on one side was the creek, and the other side was this steep hill that you had to be a mountain goat to get up and down. So a group of pioneer scouts, they called them pioneers, went in and cleared campsites and set up tents and waterproofed them and prepared cooking areas and set up a lifeguard chair for the swimming hole. I've asked my friends that know something about water quality, why were the boys allowed to swim in Wildcat Creek in 1927? But they swam it until the state told them they couldn't do it anymore. There's several springs along the cliff there, the mountainside, whatever you want to call it. And they got their water from the spring, and it was tested and was always fine. There's not quite as much water coming out of them now. And in the old days, the Boy Scout manual had instructions on how to build log cabins. So, it turned out to be useful when you're setting up a new camp. The boys went in, and I assume with some help, built log cabins. And they did not have all the training you need, I don't think, to use an axe today, but there's no stories of anybody getting seriously hurt. There were 4 weekly camp sessions, and I mentioned earlier that if you want to know who went to the Boy Scout camps from this point until the 40s, all the names are listed in the Journal and Courier. I'm not going to compile all those names, there's too many of them, there'd be thousands, but the stuff that was in the newspaper back then was more than you could find on Facebook now, because there's no restrictions. And the campers this year and a couple of years afterwards published a little weekly newspaper. I can't imagine that either in these days. And it was courts of honor. Y'all know what courts of honor are. They held that at the end of each week, they went to the council ring and held a court of honor. And in the early days, courts of honor were held for all the troops in the area. And one of the service organizations usually sponsored them and put on a feed for them. And a little different now, each troop has its own ceremony. So that my comment about the wilderness, the hilly. If you haven't been out there, you may not know what hilly is, but this is hilly. Unfortunately, most of the folks that come to Cary Camp are not interested in going down there. You know, you got to walk down and you got to walk back up. So all that land along the creek that used to be where summer camp was held with canoes and swimming holes and all that. No, but we're not using it. We need to talk to Becky Wellner here, the camp ranger, about what we might do down there. Because it would still be possible to put in a waterfront, I think.
You're right.
And so Frank paid for almost all the improvements, and he put up a kitchen. And that was the second year. And then they attached the dining hall to it. And it would come as no shock to you that every now and then the kitchen and the dining hall got inundated with Wildcat Creek water, but somehow they managed to clean it out and keep on going.
Is it still the current one?
No.
Oh, heavens, no. No, the state shut that one down. Wasn't sanitary enough, I guess. If you're interested in Native Americans, the Native Americans had to have been using this natural amphitheater for whatever Native Americans did back then. And it's a perfect council ring. And this is the modern version with seating and campfire ring. And unfortunately, Frank or nobody else thought about doing an archaeological dig before they started messing around in it. And it's probably too late to do a dig now, but somebody else may think it's worth it. The waterfront was established right in the bend in the Wildcat. That's picture a couple of days ago. And now these boys are not wearing swim suits, and that's because they're not Boy Scouts. These are forestry students that came to Cary Camp because that was about the only accessible forest land that they had access to, and so they went out there quite frequently for forestry club events and barbecues and all kinds of good things. And when I first came, you could see remnants of some of the dam materials that they used. So this is the campground. And this has most of the things that are there. The pointer is wherever. Give me something else.
No, if you touch the mouse or anything, it goes off. That
Oh.
you should be back.
Okay, very good.
Are you back? Nope.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's not, the mouse isn't clicking it either, so.
This has some of the very basics. There was cottages and a shop and the springs. And there was there's a pond that's on there, and that was one of those ponds when the Wildcat was curving and then it loaded back in. What do you call those?
Elbow legs.
There you go.
Let's see it. Sorry, technical difficulties.
No problem. My finger still works as a pointer.
The road. That's not. Back by the creek. That's just a country road. It's not, wasn't part of State Road 26.
No, State Road 26 is here.
That there.
And then the road goes through part of the 44-acre tract and down along Kitty Creek. It crosses Kitty Creek twice.
Oh.
And Becky got a footbridge so that you could walk across Kitty Creek without getting your feet wet, because sometimes it actually has water in it. Other times it's kind of dry. And then they put up a bridge for the second crossing.
Okay.
And one of the major improvements they made was calling the Purdue civil engineering folks in, and they designed a road that a real road with hump and culverts and all that good stuff. And if you go there today, you might not believe that it was actually ever a for real road, but It was.
Okay,
There'll be pictures from the paper of all kinds of structures. Adirondacks were built. And, there was a log cabin for the office, a log cabin for handicraft. And, I mentioned the dining hall and the kitchen, and there was several other structures, and they were all built by the boys. And sometimes the fathers came and helped them as well, and the families were more directly involved in Boy Scouts back then than they are now. Now, the families are still involved, and a lot of the fathers become scout leaders in the troop, but it was apparently much more common back in the day.
Think you killed the clicker.
I apologize.
I think it's dead. Changed the batteries and it's still not working.
Okay, can I click it?
Yeah, you should be able to click it from here, or at least do this. You just hit the arrow buttons.
Okay,
You should be good.
very good.
There you go. Sorry about that, everyone.
No problem. I wish I was a little taller, but that's the way it goes. Okay, the arrow button,
Not that one.
the other arrow button.
I'm coming.
Sorry, not these.
It is these. See,
Oh,
just one click. So keep going forward.
okay,
It's that one.
thank you. You'd think I've never done this sort of thing before. So this is what the bottom looks like today, and there was enough land down there to have a Boy Scout camp. And I love this cottonwood tree. It must be 100+ years old. It's huge. And the Scouts played a critical role in development
From final exam.
the development of the camp. And they planted a whole lot of trees. They planted a whole lot of trees that were non-native, so you don't find any of them, but you see Norway spruce and white pine and several other, all the conifers that are there were planted by the Scouts or the families. The reason I have this with Scouts from Troop 12 got out of their final exam so they could go to camp and start the preparation. Walter Schor's name is on there. So that's how he learned to build things. He built log cabins at Cary Camp. The swimming hole had to be cleaned out, and somehow they got a dredge down there and dredged out the silt. And I don't know what they did about the sewage, but that's another story. So in December 27th, the title was formally transferred to the council, and other than that early picture of Frank, the face image, this shows him at Cary Camp during the ceremony, and in this picture, Frank is the fourth one over from the left, I think. So this is when they laid the cornerstone at Cary Hall. The land was given in the hopes that it would, this is in the document, in the hope that the present and future generations of boys as Boy Scouts become wise and honored citizens. And it was originally exclusively used to be used by the Boy Scouts. Otherwise, it would go back to Purdue, and Purdue could do whatever they wanted with it. And that covenant still exists, and it's held as a weapon against anybody that wants to try to do things like sell that land as part of the legal settlement for the controversy that the Boy Scouts went through. But about 6 years later, there were other organizations could use Cary Camp, and it's a good thing because it was quite a popular place. 28 summer camp, the scouts attended as individuals, not troops. So you just sign up your kid and they went to camp, and then they got organized as a troop for camp purposes. And I think I mentioned the names being in the paper, and Frank provided pennants for each scout. He was there, he was involved, he was keeping track of what's going on. I love it. There we are. These are some of the structures. Headquarters and Adirondacks. And in 1929, there was a formal dedication. And that's Wheeler and Cary beside a flagpole. And it was apparently a fairly big event. They did all kinds of activities, and Wheeler wore an Indian costume and talked about the history of the camp, and pantomime depicting ceremonies Indians may have conducted around a campfire. And there were lots of church pastors there to truly bless the camp. The first edition of land was the Snyder Tract, 1929. That was donated, and it was supposed to be Snyder Camp, but it's such an incidental part of the land that it's there, but some foolish person pulled the legal stakes, so we don't know where the boundaries are. And in 1930, they published the newspaper, the Cary Courier, and a lot of the service clubs came to camp and had meals with the boys and interacted with them. And they bought some equipment and an ice box, and the camp was used almost every weekend by troops or some other organization. And there was no ranger, but in 1930 they hired a custodian. And I can't imagine taking care of that land without a ranger, but apparently it was possible. In 31, the General de Lafayette chapter of Claire, what's that a chapter of?
The DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Oh, of course. Anyway, they were the first group a non-scouting group to use the camp, and they had a covered dish supper at Cary. And there was a whole lot of troop ones back then, because there was no council organized. Every little town had a Boy Scout troop, so it was troop number one. So you can't tell a whole lot by the number of the troops. Anyway, they somehow got up to the top of the hill and put in a tennis court and baseball diamond. Ought to be young. I talked about the swimming hole. There was a chapel constructed near the council ring, and they brought in equipment to do blacksmithing. And when I first started going out to Cary, with probably late 80s, you could still see the 55-gallon drums that they filled up with rocks at the bend in the river, and that became part of the dam to make the swimming hole. Well, they got some help from the dads. Saddlebags style dam cable stretched across the Wildcat, and then poles were hung from it, and brush was interwoven, and sandbags piled in front, and that raised the water level enough to do swimming and diving. And Lions Club was one of the groups that came out on a fairly regular basis. And 36 two scouts swimming at Cary helped put out a fire in a plantation of spruce and pine trees that had flared up, and apparently they knew what they were doing. Frank bought new tents and waterproofed them for the scouts, and Purdue athletic director came over and provided equipment and instruction for a program. And I should mention that at Lincoln School, the colored school, they had a very active Girl Scout troop. And I saw one reference to a Boy Scout troop, but it obviously wasn't as active as the Girl Scout troop. And so the Girl Scouts came over, all the Girl Scouts came over and used this camp before Camp Sycamore was established. And they used the Cary swimming pool before they put one in. They were only allowed an hour a day. Okay. So Frank died in 36, and the whole family's buried out at Spring Vale Cemetery. I do want to get out there someday. I pulled these photographs off the web.
You know, if Jesse's out there.
Yeah, the whole family's there. There's Jessie in the middle, and then Frank.
Sure, yeah,
And the Leverings are there too. So it was a Levering blood.
gotcha.
So jumping ahead a little bit, in 43, a trust committee was formed specifically to help fund activities at Cary Camp. And they started a development program because the state was getting fussy about the dining halls and swimming holes. And so the plan was for a modern mess hall, swimming pool, administrative building, a health lodge, director's cottage, storeroom and canteen, and 3 troop campsites. And all those structures came eventually, but it took until recently for several of them to come into existence. And in 43, there was a flood, so that kind of delayed summer camp. The next track was Staley in 1945. It was a purchase, and that gave them access to the top. They could now put a road in and develop that flat area up on the top, and there's 2 tracks to the right, and those were also Staley tracks that were purchased a little later. Well, there they are, 58 and 60. And those 2 tracks are used a little bit, but it's primarily natural areas. Kohler donated a small acreage in the lower left there. And bless his heart, he grew euonymus there. Euonymus is an invasive species for those of you that are not familiar with it. So I spent a lot of time pulling euonymus plants out of the ground in the vicinity of this donated land. Well, it started in 46, there were camporees type of activities held, and there were summer camp and the Lions, and the new armory was established with the rifle range, and a new light plant was put in. I have no idea what that might be.
They generate electricity.
Did you think they generated electricity?
Yeah, they had their own light plant.
Can you imagine? I donated a generator, baby. That was all rural area back then. The town wasn't anywhere close to that. And so the improvement program started and they referred to moving up from the creek. And the civil engineering department surveyed the grounds and sited the buildings, and estimated cost was in today's dollar, $770,000. And the first ranger was hired in 48, and volunteers from the crafts union did a lot of building, the ranger's cabin and the dining hall and the water and sewage system. And it's the same water and sewage system that was out there now, right, Becky?
Yeah, same one,
Same cabin for you.
yeah.
So power lines were installed. And a lot, Camporee is where a lot of troops come together and put up a tent city and engage in all kinds of fun activities. Okay, I think. In 50, the health department closed down the week-long camp until a new dining hall was built. And it didn't happen instantaneously. They couldn't have summer camp there that year, so they went down to Camp Belzer, which is on the north side of Indianapolis. And so they didn't make any improvements to the dining hall on the bottom because it was useless. And in 51, the construction of the dining hall started, and the waterfront was still used for scout camp. And apparently the water quality was still not an issue. The Board of Health in 53 said you can't swim down there anymore, so they started construction of a swimming pool. And it's the details of the pool. And that's a picture of it. And it looks like the young men are having a good time. And they don't have to clean silt off of their bodies when they get out. In 1956, pennies paid for a full-page article about the Boy Scouts. It was really kind of neat. Went into great detail. They erected a totem pole in front of the main building, the dining hall, and that totem pole came down a couple years ago.
6 years ago.
Six years ago? Okay. There are plans underway to put another one up, right?
Yes.
Okay. The one that was there was built by Troop 13 at the Crouch School. And some of you may know Don Bloodgood. He was the scoutmaster of the troop. He was very, very active in the Boy Scouts and at Cary Camp. You'll see a picture of him here a little later. There were a lot of jamboree. The jamboree is a national event, but the local camps like this one had jamborettes, they were called. And they set up a tent city and they had a theme like Fort Dan Patch days, and the scouts put up displays and wore costumes. And the highest volume in terms of attendance I saw in the paper was 4,000.
Wow.
Can you imagine, Becky?
4,000 on that weekend.
Yes,
Wow.
they probably weren't all there the whole time, but I think a typical participation might have been 2,000. Those of you that have been around a while know about the dam. Yeah. The dam would have flooded the bottom of Cary Camp. It would have totally flooded the Girl Scout camp. And despite some folks at Purdue that thought this was absolutely necessary for recreation purposes, there were other politicians, praise the Lord, that were against it. And they fought it off. And I can't imagine what it'd be like if this had gone through. Given the threat of losing Cary Camp, because they couldn't have a full-fledged summer camp at Cary Camp without the waterfront and the creek, they could have dining halls.
They have a huge waterfront.
Yeah, yeah, well. I didn't see that argument used, Jim, I'm sorry. There was a, anyway, the council bought, land out of Green
Green Hill.
Green Hills. 300 and some, and that was gonna be the new camp, and they, after the reservoir was put to sleep, they sold that land, but it was gonna be the wilderness camp. I guess old cornfields can be considered wilderness in some cases. So this didn't die until '84. I want to mention some of the folks that, and this is just who recently contributed. And I'll just let you read it, a new reason for me to read it. Becky is really good at getting help from companies and Alpha Phi Omega at Purdue and from folks like me who just can't stay out of the woods. If you don't know, I'm a retired forester. I do.
I was one of your students many years ago.
Really?
You made forest economics interesting. so-
Oh, you know, you may be the first student that ever said that to me. Every now and then someone said, you know, I flunked your course.
I got close, but it was still interesting.
Okay, and they took it the second time and they must have passed it, but you know, I really don't remember who flunked. They're all the same to me. And the McAllister's Scouting Center is probably the best thing that's happened to Cary Camp in a long time. It's got a big kitchen and a dining room and meeting rooms. And all kinds of fun stuff goes on there. And McAllister Foundation paid for it, and there's the groundbreaking ceremony, and McAllister is the fourth one from the left. It's kind of a quiet philanthropic program, I think. I think you have to know they exist and then approach them. They're not out there selling themselves. At the bottom right is Bob Sorensen, who I mentioned. He and Linda, his wife, have been really big supporters in terms of managing things and donations. And the fellow on his left is George, the previous Cary Camp, George Nelson. And he did an outstanding job. And I can't imagine what it would be like if you didn't have a good ranger, because it was a couple of years when we had a really bad one. NCHS funded a health lodge and housing for a trading post manager. And another one of the really sad stories about Cary Camp, you know, you turn, when you're coming from town, you gotta turn left into Cary Camp. And I turned my turn signal on about half a mile back, because there's been several rear ending, and this one killed the Newell boy, Justin, and his family put up this shelter for him. It's probably the nicest one at the camp. It's got a fireplace and storage, and it's truly a blessing. I wish it wasn't there. It would be better to have Justin with us, but such is life. We talked to the transportation folks about putting the light out there, and they kind of laughed because there's not enough traffic. There is a new traffic signal a little further east where McCarty Lane connects up. It's not working quite yet, but maybe that'll help. there's memorial shelters, Razor, Moser, and Cecil Warner, and this is absolutely my favorite time in the woods. Because the spring ephemerals are out and you gotta bend over and look down to see them, but they're really beautiful when you look close.
Bill,
Yes,
is that our John Moser?
yes.
What we doing?
And the National Rifle Association has been a big supporter and that goes way back, I guess, and there is one of the activity fields is a shooting range, archery and BBs. There used to be a 22 range down on the bottom, but we don't go down there anymore.
We're trying to resurrect it though.
Really?
The army wants it. They don't have a rifle range in the armory anymore. They need a place to shoot.
Really?
They're going out to Atterbury for the, Ross is going
Oh,
out to
good Lord.
Atterbury to shoot.
Well, the Marine ROTC group was there last weekend, so the military has used it in the past. Those are Virginia bluebells. I took this a couple of days ago, so they're not out fully bloomed yet, but oh my gosh, that's just enough to make you cry to see those beautiful flowers. And those of you that have been around a while, remember down Monitor before the honeysuckle took over, was just a sea of blue. I drove by just to see it. We put in a prairie. There was originally a cornfield, and I decided that cornfields and Boy Scouts don't have a whole lot in common. So I talked them into not leasing the farm ground, and we hired a professor from Illinois that was a prairie expert, and we put in a prairie. And we were able to burn it 3 times afterwards, but it hadn't been burned in a long time for many reasons. There's a high tension power line goes through. There's a highway to the south. There were houses on the north, south, east, and west. And unless you have a fire crew that knows really what they're doing and is flexible enough to be there when they can get a lift of the smoke instead of it drifting, it really needs burned, and the invasives are coming in real strong. So the future of Cary Camp, well, there's Becky Wellner's name because she's doing such a great job. Cary Camp is still somewhat unique. There's all kinds of places now where you can go and have a party or a wedding or whatever you want, but most of them are in a camp setting and places to hike and places to spend the night if you want, or throw up a tent without getting arrested because you're homeless.
Did they come out there?
No, I'm
Gonna say, wow,
they don't do that.
they're down here.
There's no homeless camping out of Cary, are there?
No, sorry.
Okay. And the community is still supporting the Boy Scouts in general and Cary Camp in particular. You saw that long list. Of course, from the beginning, Boy Scouts have always been out there appealing for money, and I won't do that here today. But if you're interested, I can tell you who to contact. And I think that's my last slide. Since
So have you been involved with Cary Camp for a long time then?
I went out there when my son was a Cub Scout, and I started walking around, and I ran into these barbed wire fences. And I said, well, what are these fences doing here? And it was the boundaries for all those parcels that I showed on the maps. So I took it upon myself to take out those fences and open up the whole camp to the free range movement of the Boy Scouts. And they're not free ranging as much as I would like, but that's how I got started. And then being a forester, I did timber stand improvement and cut firewood and whatever. Well, you never tell me what to do. You just let me do whatever I want.
That's great.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, in the back.
I camped in there as a scout in the sixties, loved the place. Moved away for a long time, recently moved back. Every once in a while, I drive by there and resist the temptation to just drive in there and look around.
Well, drive in there and look around.
That's okay.
That's not a problem.
That's okay.
There's a phone number to call if you want to be on the up and up, Becky's number.
Okay,
It's posted right when you're driving.
Yeah.
And you just say, hey, I'm just here to look around. Say, "Oh, so enjoy yourself."
okay.
Yeah, sure.
Is there kind of a blackout period where you don't do that? Or-
If you pull in, it's full of cars, go away.
Yeah, it's a big event.
And don't go on this Saturday.
Yeah, this is not.
No. We have a giant egg hunt. That would be insane. Well, unless you wanna buy a ticket.
This weekend is scouting for eggs. It's for adults. My troop will help hide 30,000 eggs in the woods. They're all full of coupons. Some are instant win prizes, some of them are raffle tickets. We got food trucks, music, all this stuff. The egg hunt is done in the dark just to make it more interesting. Go to scoutingforeggs.com. That's the number 4, not the word 4, and you can buy tickets.
And you can put up a fire.
We'll have a bunch of fires. We'll have fires for you. We'll have s'mores, we'll have all kinds of stuff. Come on up.
Tell them about the first time we had it.
I was a zoo, I remember that.
I'm sorry that you were there.
I just drove by.
Oh, okay.
Or you're lucky you got through.
Yeah, we shut down the interstate because so many cars were pulling in. We expected maybe 500 people and there were like 2,000. None of the toilets would flush. Oh, it was crazy. It's gotten a lot better.
Yeah, I was there also on a service troop. That was fun.
That is an amazing idea though.
Yeah, we saw parking problem. You don't park there. You park at a couple local places, we'll bus you it. Makes it much easier, gives a lot more space for stuff and it's a lot easier. Yeah.
I'd just like to, before I forget, my name is David Hovde and I'm on the Board of Governors of Tiffin County Historical Association. And I've been involved in the organization since 1989. And from that year onward, all the directors and the people particularly who run the feast say that the feast wouldn't be the feast without the Boy Scouts. Because of all of the trash pickup and food booths and everything else. I've got a booth there right next to the smelt booth, and they always give me coffee in the morning and everything else, and it's really nice. But the TCHA and Boy Scouts have been linked from the very, very beginning. The first reenactment of the French fur trade period was held at the Fort Yachtman Park before the blockhouse was built. And the Boy Scouts were a major part of that. The first feast, and the Boy Scouts came out, the Order of the Arrow did Indian dances and all that sort of stuff, and they've been there ever since. And again, the feast wouldn't be the feast without the Scouts there. The blockhouse, that is kind of like the symbol of Tippecanoe County in many people's minds, was built by the same guy who built the first buildings at Cary Camp. And
Who was that?
if I had, okay,
If you think about it.
looking up before I came here, but I got distracted. But I can tell you, go to the Fort Yachtman book that was just recently published. He's in there.
Okay.
But again, the two organizations have been very strongly linked. And the other thing that's interesting, and I've actually encountered a couple of old guys who remember this, is that in the early days of the feast, the Boy Scouts would go there and they would go to, the people demonstrating blacksmithing or cooking on a campfire, et cetera, would, they were learning all this sort of stuff. And the next weekend, they would come back to the Fort Yachtman Park and have a camporee where they would show their scoutmasters what they learned at the feast. I don't know when it started and I don't know when it ended. I can't find that information. You might be able to. But I actually found a patch, a camporee patch from one of those.
Oh.
That's in our collection. that was,
Here?
I just,
Historicals?
yeah, that I encountered on eBay and I snapped it up. But, so anyway, thanks again for, all that you have done and are doing.
He's an active scouter.
How do they handle the girls now? Not very well.
Oh, we've got a girl.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You guys might be doing good out.
I'm Jeff Rathbury, I'm Scoutmaster Troop 801, first troop for girls in Sagamore Council. We got our paperwork in before we left them. We deliberately met on a Friday because the 1st of February, so we could say we operated the first day. We've got 26 active scouts. In June, we'll have our 5th Eagle Scout Court of Honor. 4 patrols going. We're the service troop for one of the service troops for scouting for eggs. We work out at the feast every year for David and Dorothy Taylor at the toy booth. We go to 2 summer camps a year. We took them to Philmont. I think we're doing pretty well. Thank you, sir.
And you've done it in the all girl?
Yeah, I'll go.
Yes.
It's so much.
See, when I was, going.
They're better behaved.
Isn't
They
there?
understand why things need to be clean. They don't throw rocks and swing sticks at each other.
Oh, yeah. I was like, it's an 11-year-old girl.
You know, way back when I was a Cub Master, I thought it was a Girl Scout. Then, you know, my Cub Scouts wanted to scream at each other and throw sticks. The girls at the same age, they wanted to hold hands and sing songs as they hiked. On the way to Girl Scout camp one weekend, they reenacted their middle school musical in my car. And they did a great job. I love running a girl troop. And we've got 26 scouts and about 29 registered parents.
That's the blessing, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's another Girl Scout troop, isn't there somewhere?
There are so 372 B and G are now joint troops.
Okay,
There's another one up in Demont and there's one in Kokomo. And I think a 5th one, I'm not sure where.
and they wear red berets.
Our troop wears red berets.
Just
us.
Oh, just, okay.
I had a beret when I was a scout. I found some reproductions. They go into a scout rank, we give them one. We ran for Court of Honor.
Boys, your program used to wear berets too.
Yeah.
So you find anything to help train other adults to
visit by
show them you're doing it so they can
To Cary Camp.
That's what I find is.
Yes.
Did you?
I did, as a
Find
matter.
out.
Okay.
Share it.
I'll have to look it up again, but.
Yeah.
There should be some sort of.
I have a snapshot of him out there, but I didn't, Dan Beard, one of the founders of Boy Scouting.
See, that's points like that. I'm just saying, you have a successful way of doing it. You need to share that. So,
Thank you for coming. Bill H at Purdue.edu if you have some input or you want. Question answered.
Thank you. Thank you.
I graduated in 78.
Some retired.
Oh, I was green then.
Yep.
I didn't come until 74.
Yep, you were, I just remember you being enthusiastic always about. When we were talking about plantation. Then before. Anyway. You're making like this program.
He was one of these. Help him do whatever the ring needed. And he was very active. Prepared things.
He's on the gig.
Okay, well, I know he was great.
And it was.
And